Up here in studio, just talking about how we cannot stay away from the 2022 conversation. This is the elephant in the room that has to be addressed now. But it's coming at a time when we are also dealing with the reforms and changing the constitution and leading this country to a new direction. So giving us a very tricky balance of trade here as a country, because we know how toxic our politics can get. But then I'd just like to understand at this particular juncture also, how then do we, trade? How then do we reach a compromise? How then do we come up with a formula that will not hurt Wanjiku, it will not block Wanjiku from benefiting from this whole process that is meant to bring solutions to the challenges that the country is facing? Job, I'll start with you and then I'll also get to Lydia, because we've all agreed we cannot stay away from 2022. But we need to really not let the promises that the BBI initiative have go just like that because of the politics. How do we balance? How do we reach a balance?
I think the first thing is for the principals to rein in on their troops. Let me use our troops. They retrace the journey. They remind everybody of the direction that they wanted to go. That direction included constitutional reforms. It included legislative matters. It included policy and admin issues that need to be sorted out, because we have issues. They laid out 9 issues, and Kenyans helped them dissect these 9 issues, which now came into BBI 1 and then BBI 2, which now is in Parliament. So that needs to go on. The second thing is that they need to be honest with themselves. Just like I said earlier, they need to be honest with themselves and to know that political parties are formed to capture power. Now, once they have agreed on a framework, they need to agree now. This should not be an assumption, should not be stated by other people. It should be an agreement between the two. It should be clear from them. Yes, from them. They should be the ones passing the message. I know you are ODM, you're a political player. I know you're a Jubilee, a political player. Now, how do you want to play out now based on the fact that there is other competition which is now moving? Because all these issues we know have been created by the fact that the political competition is now moving very fast. And some of this political competition comes from within the coalitions that these two principals had just at the time of the handshake. Raila was in NASA, Uhuru was in Jubilee. Yeah, UDA is moving, which is principally part of Jubilee. NASA had Musalia and the rest. They are moving, and they are part of NASA. So when these people move around, and then when there are rumors, innuendos, and maybe facts that they're being supported by people within the civil service, as alleged by Orengo and the rest. And these same people in the civil service, at one point, were at the disposal of the BBI team. Because the truth is that that core team of the civil service, the BBI, was actually, in government, it was almost being run by Mathia office on the government side, as part of his coordination of government or whatever. He was initially, if you looked at how BBI 1 came about and the rest, that funding was actually coming through him to the task force, from what I can gather from what's publicly available. So that part of government, civil service, is very key to the BBI, or it has been key that moment. So the only difference is the politics that they want to play. Is it politics that benefits the principles of the BBI, or it is politics that benefits people who did not consider the BBI? Because if the BBI brought this space where we have peace, the economy is growing, there's goodwill, and then somebody within the same structure attempts to hijack that and gives the benefits of that to one who in the initial stages was actually anti-BBI. The truth is that Mudavadi, Kalonzo, Wetangula, Ruto were all anti-BBI.
But there was room for national discourse.
Yes, they were all anti-BBI when it started.
Yeah,
yes,
we agree.
Yes. So they are late into the train. So they should not appear to be in a hurry to reap from it more than the two principles of the BBI. No, surely they should. No, that's the politics.
I don't know, but it's not upon me to disagree or agree.
That's
but
politics.
Lydia, what do you think?
I think...
you may have opposed the BBI, but somewhere along the line, because of national discourse, because of public participation, I mean, was there not room for changing your mind and making a U-turn?
I think there was. There was definitely room. I think one of the greatest U-turns we have seen is, I think, the governor of Makueni, who's done, like the people have said, so me, I don't know. Then there's also this other fellow from Kiambu, former Governor Kabogo. So you've seen some U-turns, and I think U-turns are acceptable. But let me tell you, I do agree. So first of all, yes, you cannot keep political actors from politicizing BBI, because they also want to use the platform to rebuild their image, to reconnect with the people, to improve their prospects for re-election in 2022. Others want to use the platform to emerge as new leaders and candidates for 20. So that is going to continue to happen. 3 actors must remain above that fray if BBI is to survive and not be stillborn. One is the president. He has to remain above the fray. He cannot get into a conversation about 2022. It will torpedo BBI straight away. The second actor is the former Prime Minister. He cannot be the one connecting BBI and 2022. If he's playing his politics, let those politics be played through ODM. Let him advance his political organizing, his outreach to allies, and his outreach to communities and stakeholders and groups of youth and women. Let that be advanced through the political wing. That is ODM that he leads, and that is okay. But he must remain above the fray where BBI is concerned. The other third actor is the government of Kenya and its machinery. The provincial administration, you know, the commissioners, ministries, interior, the police, they must be seen to be above the fray on this conversation of BBI. They cannot be seen to be trying to create some kind of future for 2022 on some political actors right now. Fine, there are some people in those offices. Of course, those offices like NSIS and Ministry of Interior, they also try to what is called statecraft. They try to statecraft the future of the country, and they try to bring up people who could be potential leaders and support them and whatnot. But if I was to give advice unsolicited, hold on that until BBI is secure, until BBI is home and dry. We've got it. The bill is signed by the president. Once that is done, go back and do your statecraft machinations. Or if you try to do it now, make sure you're not caught trying to do it. Those 3 actors must be seen, even if they are not truly, they must be seen to be above the fray, and they must, because they're the ones who will keep BBI, the conversation a little bit sane, so that it's not completely overcome by the 2022 politics that are beginning, of course, to emerge, and which you cannot stop. Yeah.
They should make sure they're not caught.
Yeah, they should make it not caught. Just do it and don't be seen.
But, Job, do you think when the 2 gentlemen entered this gentleman's agreement, did they invest in also marshalling their allies into this handshake? Did they invest in actually making sure that as I'm speaking this language, my team is also speaking this language together with me, reading from what is happening?
Yes, you've heard from various BBI meetings how the president reached out to his deputy, who even went ahead and appointed 3 commissioners of that task force. Raila has also said how he called Kalonzo and he didn't get him, and then he got Mudavadi. And then I remember very well after the handshake, there was a meeting in Manzoni Lodge, the NASA team. They're all there and they talked about it. So they reached out to these people. But the BBI had always been dogged by 2022 from that point, whereas the principals that time were saying that we were crafting this thing for posterity and the rest. Those who had political ambitions were saying, no, this must be a tool by yourself and Raila to craft a 2022 team. That time it was not genuine, yeah, because we had a lot of time. In fact, this BBI, had it not been for, let me say, for quite some time, there were people who were anti-BBI within the statecraft. Let me use that word. That's why the BBI really delayed. This thing was supposed to have been over, in my view, by 2019. It will have been over, it will have been done. That task force will have been done. No, 2019, before even COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but there were people who were still playing karata with it. Let's just keep Raila happy and the economy moves. yeah, this may happen or not happen. But then they realized the president was serious. When they realized the president was serious, COVID came in. Yeah, now we are caught up with time. So those actors who looked at this as 2022 were skeptical. So even when they were being brought on board, they were saying, no. That's why the deputy president bolted. He was anti-BBI from word. These other people, they are here, nor there. And the two principals went. In fact, at some point, Raila carried so much of this weight on the BBI just before actually COVID came. Yeah. So the people just need to wait. If at the moment we are waiting for a referendum, Parliament will do its work, whatever they do, we will go to a referendum. The people just need to look at what's good in this thing, and to me there's a lot of good in it. If we pass this BBI, then we move on. But I still repeat, we are time barred. If I was actually a member and a leading member of a political party, I will not stop talking about 2022. Because you need more than 1 year if you are a party who's seriously looking for power to strategize. So at what point will you go to Kwale and do a BBI meeting, and then when do you go back and do an ODM meeting? At what point will you go to Sagana and do a BBI meeting, and then you want to go back and do a Jubilee meeting? The timelines are becoming very tight. These two principals just need to openly now discuss their 2022 plan. They may not have to make it public, but they have to tell their troops, like we were discussing in the background, tell their troops this is our plan. After 2022, Jubilee will be moving on its own. I'm not going to discuss in the ODM. Or after 2022, will be moving its own. I'm not going to discuss about Jubilee. So that they know as they move towards the referendum. Because other than, if they don't do that, then this BBI will, by default, be sacked in 2022 matters, and chances are that depending on how things are moving, we may be in trouble. Yes.
Let me bring in the deputy president. Lydia, I don't know what you interpret from how he has been handling this whole BBI initiative. His messaging, he's coming out to say he's not comfortable with 1, 2, 3 things. How he has gone about this whole process, how do you interpret that, based on the fact that we are all talking about these key players being very strategic about how they go about this process? How do you interpret his game plan with the BBI initiative?
When you see the deputy president and then you hear what the president says about the fact that he was on board from the beginning, there is a sense you get that he did not want to come to the BBI as a package with Uhuru. He didn't want to come into this handshake conversation as a package. You know, Uhuru would have come and say, Mimi, niko na nani, na nani, na nani. So these ones are taken care of. The same way Kalonzo and Mudavadi said, hey, even as we are not coming with Raila as a package, yes, we want our own identity, mtuongeleshe, direct, you know.
We are our own
people. So I think there's a sense in which that's one of the things that, because he want to get swallowed in that, because if he was beneath or underneath or behind Uhuru, then the other principle is Raila. So you can imagine the contenders are just those two, and then he doesn't have his own identity, and he could see the way this thing was going to go. It was going to shape, in some sense, the political discourse going into the next election, and he wanted to have his own identity. So there's that first fact. The second fact is that he is opposed to BBI, because his people have told us that the concern, one of the concerns of why there are concerns on his side, perhaps with his people, maybe not him, is that you're going to reduce the national government's budget from 85% to 65%. So there's like, hey, you governed with 85%, me, you want me to govern with 65%. Why? Then you want me to share power with Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister. There is a whole parliamentary, strength that comes with this Prime Minister. So there's a sense, of course, he feels that his presidency, if he was to get it, would be watered down. So that's part of some of the, in-house things that he doesn't say, that some of his people talk about in terms of why they are opposed to the BBI. But more other people say, well, he'll also use the BBI to also coalesce a coalition around him, so he can have better prospects for 2022. He will need those 5 positions actually even more than Uhuru or Raila would need those 5 positions to sort of converge a coalition that has the potential to take power in 2022. So there is that. Now, the final thing why he will not come out clearly that he's actually opposed is because he doesn't want to spend money. he doesn't want to use his budget for the 2022 campaigns on this BBI, because he can see if it passes, he will have his cake and still eat it. You understand? He'll have had his identity, and he will still use those 5 positions to campaign. He'll still use the World Development Fund to campaign. So it will still work out for him if it passes, right? But if he comes out to oppose it for it not to pass, he will have to spend money in competition with the state which automatically comes with employees, vehicles, resources, a broadcast company such as KBC. I mean, there is so much that he would need to outlay money-wise to oppose or to come heads-on against, the principles of the BBI, that it's just not worth it. He will run out of steam, he will run out of money, and there's no guarantee that he will actually be able to win. Otherwise, if he knew that he could have the kind of resource that he needed to push back on the state and push back on the infrastructure that is there for BBI, he probably would attempt, because it would profile him higher than these 2 principles. But he won't take that chance. It's too risky. It will cost him too much. And he just doesn't have, I think, the level of outlay of cash that you would need to do both BBI, no BBI campaign and the 2022 campaign.
I like how you have articulated that. Job, I also want to hear your own version of how you interpret this.
The DP's stance.
Yes, how he has been, his messaging, and even what he does when it comes to touching that BBI button. How do you interpret it, and why he's inspired to do what he does?
He is opposing it, and he's clever about it. If you watch his events, he'll say 1 or 2 lines about the BBI, which on the face value does not seem like opposing, but he has let 30 people before him oppose it. In fact, that's one aspect of the DP's political posturing, which he needs to improve on. It comes out so badly. When you have 30 people before you say, this thing is mbaya, this thing is whatever, then you come and say, you know what, you start saying as if you didn't hear what they say. So he is opposing the BBI. But like Lydia said, it's difficult for him to oppose it directly, because he's going to be the biggest beneficiary of BBI. Amongst these top players, where the top players at the moment is Uhuru, Ruto and Raila, tier 1, and then the rest is tier 2. Ruto has the biggest problem of forming coalitions. His politics are such that he doesn't seem like he wants to sit on the same table with people as equals. He always likes being the boss. And that makes, in this tribal and regional nature of our politics, that makes it very difficult for him to get friends. So if this thing passes, he'll be the biggest beneficiary, because he'll automatically and by default get an opportunity to have 4 friends who will not come because they love him. They come because there are positions that they can occupy, despite whatever relationship they have with the DP. So that's why, whether the thing passes or not, he's okay. He's okay on that sense, because it will give him more leverage. On the other hand, he will like the whole state machine. Most of these politicians like the whole 85% and being the boss and everything. Yeah, that is before the BBI. So his messaging is very clear. Let the people oppose. In fact, he had hoped the MCAs were going to oppose this. The president and Raila were cleverer than him on that. Now he's really praying that the people, for some reason or the other, oppose. In fact, that's why you'll find that several people went to court. And some of these people went to court at some point affiliated with him, and he's then perceived no campaign to try to derail this thing as much as possible.
We're talking about the no campaign now that you brought that up. There's been this question of who will lead a no campaign. Why should we even be asking that question? I mean, especially coming from the BBI proponents. They've already carried the day. Why are they interested in somebody to come and oppose?
There is a Linda Katiba group that even today they're going to issue some statements. Yeah, there is a group called Linda Katiba. They don't have, unfortunately, I know Mathia will feel so bad if I say this and she hears. They don't have a person with that gravitas to stand there as a politician and say, I'm leading it. So far now, it's only Mathia who's there from the leading politicians saying no. So that will come a cropper. The church, unlike the 2010 where the church was very strong, the church this time is ambivalent. So they are missing the church, where the church means the whole religious body. They are missing a big politician to be on their side. So it's now left to some civil society groups saying they are leading in the Katiba. to try to say no. Yeah, but they're up against a very big machinery. Yeah, it will be difficult.
So currently there is no one to lead a no campaign?
You know, you will be torpedoed. I mean, the state is going to have you for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I mean, and no politician wants to have their security withdrawn. I don't know. You know, they also, you know, statecraft is a matter of soft deploying, yes, soft tactics, but also very hard tactics. So if you, for example, are an actor in the political space and maybe you even have a position in government, then, you know, and you've seen some of those things deployed. You've seen some of that hard power exercised on some of these people. And these are tools that are at the disposal always of the state. They can always deploy these tools that make you be like, hey, you know, it's okay, it's not worth it. Let me just be quiet. If it passes, it passes. It doesn't, it's okay. I'm not going to be the one to fall on my sword on a thing that actually doesn't hurt me in the long run, just to make a political point or create political relevance or stature. Let it be, and you'll not see a lot of these politicians really come out too strongly against BBI. I think in Mount Kenya we only have three politicians who are opposed against a huge whole force of MCAs and governors and all that. So it's very difficult when the state is really on one side and you hedge your bets against it.
On the other side. So is this a done deal then? Well, if we are waiting for a referendum, so
if the handshake holds,
a yes or no,
unless something goes wrong with the handshake and Raila withdraws his troops in Bunge from supporting BBI, that's the only thing that can stop us from going to a referendum.
That will stop reggae.
That can stop reggae. The other thing is the judiciary. I think the judiciary is being, and I say this with a lot of humility, I think they are being a little bit too liberal with the power that they hold. They need to come out clearly as soon as they can to tell us whether they are stopping BBI or not stopping BBI, because the uncertainty, you know, that they would create, let's say Parliament, finally, I think they've already published, so they will very soon, you know, go to Bunge and pass the thing. So we'll just all be sitting on our hands, waiting for the judiciary to determine the case that is before them. I think they have a responsibility to decide one way. Don't have that uncertainty, because Kenyans are not good with uncertainties. The amount of rhetoric that will emerge in a you know, kind of like an information lacuna where it's not clear whether we are going forward or back. People start suspecting each other. I think I've seen something in the newspaper. No, I think it's Robert Alai's tweet. He said, saying that there's a scheme to use the judiciary, I don't know, to approve some things and then rule others unconstitutional or something.
So, you know, living out to make that, to block that from happening, something needs, a clear direction needs to be given. They need to give clear direction so that they also don't create room for a lot of suspicion and funny rhetoric, which we don't know. Again, you know, this country, people can really pivot into the wrong direction. So they need to come out clearly before Parliament finishes, or around the time the Parliament finishes with the business of the BBI. The judiciary must also have closed the matter and opened up for IBC to begin preparing, or shut it down so that we all know hakuna mali tunaenda. But they need to determine that case. All right. So let's now, you know, leave it at that. Let's wait. It's a wait and see the situation. But one of the things that the Building Bridges initiative sought to address, it has been a perennial problem. We began this conversation by talking about it, the issue of divisive elections. I know there are others that also are contained as part of the proposals to solve what is ailing Kenya, but the divisive elections is a hot button that has really taken us backwards in this country for centuries. I'd like to just get your quick reaction, going by what happened in the recent by-elections in Kabuchai, in Matungu, in Nakuru County, and the sort of skirmishes and the chaos that we witnessed after those by-elections. Would you confidently say that as a country we have gotten to that point where we are ready to put divisive elections in our past?
No, the Matungu, Kabuchai, London Ward, and the Kisii one, and the one in Naivasha, it was a very bad show for the Republic. And in fact, I'm disappointed by, first of all, Chebukati. I expect Chebukati to have issued a stronger statement than what he did, and condemned those who harassed his staff. Secondly, the politicians who move them further. You know, before you'll find politicians fighting in a polling station. That's okay. They can beat each other up if they wish.
No, it's not okay.
No, but
No,
it's their own issue. But when they move to tackling officers, elections officers, it's a very serious thing happening. In fact, I'm wondering who will want to be a clerk? In some of these places, no one will want to be a clerk unless a policeman is guarding you right there. Because if Chebukati and the DPP and the police allow what I saw in Matungu, where Malala frog marched election officials from their station and is walking around holding press conferences, if that is allowed to continue, it could be very sad. If what we saw in London, where police will come and disperse 1,000 people who had come to vote, and no one cared whether they came back to vote, is allowed to happen, that's very bad.
All right, but then how then do we interpret this based on our motive and our spirit of addressing the perennial issue of divisive elections? Are we ready for that? We want it, but are we ready for that? Just looking at what happened just recently, it's just the other day, we have not even moved far. Are we ready for peaceful elections in this country, tear gas-free elections?
What can guarantee elections that are peaceful is that the institutions entrusted with the management of elections must always be and be perceived to be above board. So maybe IBC, they were doing their job, but on the Matungu, London ward elections, there is no excusing the security forces and the level of laissez-faire attitude that they displayed when some of these things were happening. We must express a very strong sense of intolerance to political violence. It has to be so clear that you cannot do the things that we saw happen in Matungu and London and in those other places. It must be so clear that even the thought, you having the thought of doing that thing, it just makes you shudder because of how strongly the state institutions are supposed to react to you. If Chebukati, and I agree with him, when he saw his officer being frog-marched like this, the next thing is to just cancel that damn thing.
Exactly.
You know how that election stood, and there's a winner who is announced. It's a travesty of justice. It doesn't make any sense. And what it's also communicating to these adults, that conducted themselves in that manner, is that, oh, you can actually do this and get away with it. And when people get away with that level of impunity, you can bet they will repeat it. And so the challenge actually goes to the state institutions to be able to push back and express the intolerance we need to see against these acts of violence and these acts of, impunity around elections. Because people will always try. People will always try to suppress voter turnout, to suppress, the opponent's person from coming out, but everybody must stick within the law. So the law enforcement persons are the ones who really have the responsibility to make sure that we do not all act as if we are in the Plato age, with that age of, before the state, where everybody, the strong man wins and everybody is, everybody is in charge and nobody is in charge. So I was very disappointed. Personally, I was very, very disappointed with the security forces, whether they were acting or on their own behalf, on the behest of maybe the local leaders or any other leaders. That was a complete failure on their part. In fact, they must do something to redeem themselves. We must see action post that activity.